African National Conference Youth League has started this weekend for the first time in years. Delegates from several provinces have arrived at Nasrec in Johannesburg. The 26th conference is expected to elect the national leadership. Ziniko Mhlaba is in Nasrec for us. Ziniko, is it a festival of chairs or have things started from smooth ground?
Well, Clement, we can't tell yet whether it is the festival of chairs because the delegates are very much calm at this point. There is no any element of strong factionalism or militant or military elements. So the delegates seem to be very organized so far, even though the conference is delayed. Remember, it was supposed to be officially opened at about midday today, but due to the delays in the registration process of the conference, it has not started yet. However, delegates now are making their way from the registration center coming into the Nasrec center where the actual conference will be taking place. But let's just get a sense of how important and how crucial is this particular conference, Clement, considering that it's been delayed in terms of electing national constitutionally elected or democratically elected leadership for the past 8 years or so. I've got with me one of the previous leaders, someone who served the league for many years and actually made his way to, at some point, the national executive, but he's still on the ground as a former activist of the youth league, Mr. Mzwandile Masina. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. As a former youth leaguer and looking at the past 6 years or 8 years or so, how the league has failed to sit and elect the national leadership, how has that crippled the overall performance of the ANC?
Well, firstly, I would like to congratulate the leadership of the ANC for putting together the different task teams that have made sure that eventually there are semblance of structures of the ANC on the ground, from branch to regional to provincial and now to the national conference, and to pay my homage to those comrades who would have served before to make sure that today we've got a national conference. And I think that this is a very important moment in the life of the African National Congress. The Youth League there can never be a vacuum in the ANC Youth League because it directly affects the leadership of the ANC. If you look at the composition of the leaders of the ANC today, almost 80–90% of them are product of the Youth League. So we cannot have a break in the preparatory school. So we need to make sure that at all times the ANC regenerates itself through the preparatory school, which is the African National Congress Youth. So this gathering is very important, and I want to urge all our delegates that regardless of what they prefer, the organization have to prevail today.
I mean, one would say you come from a generation that was very active, that was very influential, commanded its place very well within the broader politics of the ANC. Looking at the break in terms of not having an elected structure for the past 6 years, do you believe that this particular conference is going to give the mother body the young voice it needs, that militant voice that holds the national leaders of the ANC accountable and be able to express the needs of young people? Do you think they have the quality?
Well, there is. Looking at the leaders that are being nominated on the ground, all of us, obviously, as former leaders of the Youth League, we always keep a tap in terms of what is happening in the Youth League. We have confidence that the leaders that are going to emerge here, firstly, they are going to unite the Youth League. And I think that one of the main messages that we must send across to the African National Congress and to the Youth League itself is that there should never be a moment of disbandments. The leadership must serve for 3 years, convene a conference, and then hand over to the next leadership if they are not elected. This thing of disbanding structures of the organization is not helpful to the ANC itself, because it gives and breeds lots of opportunists who position themselves using these interim structures of the African National Congress, who have never even tested an internal democracy of the African National Congress. I think that if there's one thing that all of us now that we are leaders of the National Executive Committee, when there's an item to disband the Youth League, we must always remember the moments when the Youth League had no leadership for almost 8 years and say enough is enough. We cannot do that. We must just make sure that the sitting leadership finishes their term and they allow the new leadership to come in.
Talk about the dangers of national leaders interfering or getting involved in the politics of the ANC. How dangerous is that? And do you think that the ANC is able to guard itself from not getting involved in youth politics in terms of influencing the outcomes of conferences?
Fortunately, all of us as former leaders, all what we want to see the lively youth league. We have no preference. If you ask me who's standing today, who I'm supporting, I support the youth league. I don't support any individual. So I don't think that there is any former leader of the youth league who will, in his sound mind, want to interfere in the affairs of the youth league. Because even during our time, we resisted any attempt from ANC leaders to subvert internal democracy of the youth league with their preferences even in our own organization. So therefore we cannot do it ourselves now that we are now leaders of the African National Congress. So I think that if there is any leader by sheer mistake who is involved in somehow, we can call on that leader to desist from doing so, because the youth league must elect amongst its members the leadership of the African National Congress Youth League, which is going to move us forward.
Let's talk about just one last question. Let's talk about the policies or issues do you think this particular conference should really champion beyond this conference? Gaps you see in the national executive or the national agenda of the ANC. You believe young people must actually close that gap in terms of policy direction?
Yes, I think that if you look at the ANC policy direction around nationalization, around the Reserve Bank, expropriation of land without compensation, I think that for me, all those policies would have emerged out of that engagement and discussion from the ANC. The newly elected leadership will have a responsibility, therefore, to champion those interests, because if you can't deal with issues of unemployment, poverty and inequality, you would have failed to serve the interests of young people in the main. So I think, therefore, we will, in our different capacities, as we interact with the formal structure of the Youth League, begin to really share with them the historic perspective of why, when we said economic freedom in our lifetime, and what was the perspective and what needs to be done. So we want to urge the leadership that is going to emerge here to really they should not focus on the factional politics of the ANC. Allow us as the elders to do our things in the ANC, but serve the interest of the youth, and that is why we are here today to support the Youth League of the African National Congress. I think today is their day to reclaim their autonomy, as it were. Unfortunately, the ANC had to intervene and ensure that there is a semblance of structures and there is a conference, and we're happy that we are going to be hosting a national conference today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masina.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mzwandile Masina, former leader or one of the former leaders of the ANC Youth League back in the days. Remember that he served in different capacities within the ANC. However, he's now serving in one of the top structures of the ANC, the motherboard. He was saying that, well, he does not believe or he does not think that the former leaders and the current leaders of the ANC who are serving at the highest level should be getting involved in the ANC politics. So that's the situation here, Clement. Well, the delegates are still coming in. They're making their way to the hall where they will be having lunch, hoping that maybe at about 6 or 7 the conference will be able to be officially opened.
Ziniko, Mhlaba, live to us from the ANC Youth League's conference at Nasrec. Thank you.